this point in time, we actually referred to the police. If these were made even during the report at any time, I would have expected them to have been followed up. And although I can't speak for on behalf of previous individuals, I did ask the incumbent director that if there were any issues of serious nature within the report that could be acted on immediately, they should be. However, I think the issue about cooperation and where we are, I think that really needs to be as much in public as where we are, because that concerns me as much as any individual and the public as well. And as, if you like, raise the profile of the report from what was considered in its earliest days an issue of overcharging to a more serious level. I think that's something that we need to have an update on here and now. I think that's possible.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to issues raised in the report that have highlighted safeguarding issues, in particular those of alleged allegations in terms of serious offences, we're working very closely with the police. We need to establish date, place, time and people involved if that's not clear from the report. So, in partnership with the police, we are seeking to interview the people that made the allegations to Ms. Klonowski, and following that we'll be able to work out with the police what specific actions need to be taken, if any.
And you...
Can I just clarify with you, Graham, that it's actually the local authority that are interviewing the sources of these allegations, and that if there is a case to answer, then obviously the police will be there, and obviously it will go on from there. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. We, under the safeguarding duties that we have, we need to take lead responsibility. The police will only take matters further forward if there's a clear criminal offence that has taken place that hasn't already been investigated. What's not clear at this point in time is whether these events have been previously investigated or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I mean, clearly the report in its commissioning and the length of time that's gone on before the final report has come out. The question that keeps running through my mind is if these allegations, whether they're true or not, the seriousness of the allegations should have prompted action at the most immediate step, which was when that was reported, and perhaps foolishly or again without proper advice didn't realise that they hadn't been acted as soon as that comment was made. I would have thought, you know, someone come up to me and made such an allegation, my first thought would be go straight to the police or to the safeguarding officer, but it would appear that the process has somehow allowed time lapse, which always makes, as I understood it, from watching TV, that the longer crime goes uninvestigated, the more difficult it is to get to the root cause. So I am concerned that immediately that those statements were made, that action should have been taken. But I've not been privy to what's gone on during the investigation, only to the final report. Perhaps, again, in hindsight, I should have challenged more the incumbent director that these actions were being followed up. But they are taking the case to a more serious level. Not that it isn't serious enough in its own right, but that is I think is what the public are genuinely concerned about when you see words such as rape and, you know, threatening from baseball bats and that sort of thing, and that really generally is concerned at all.
I don't want to prolong this. Graham, I realise that you're very new in the process, so you won't have a personal memory. But can we put our finger on the points at which we knew about these things? Who knew about them and when did they know? And why was nothing done immediately we knew about them?
Chair, I think Graham clearly wasn't supposed to that point. The people who really know about them were the officers and members who had the copy of the report. Yeah. I can't remember the precise date that we got the draft. I couldn't get me that date. certainly did look at a whole range of issues, but I think perhaps I would say that a more concerted conversation with
Well, I mean, to be fair, the date would go back even further than the publication of the report. Someone will have said those words to the person who was given the job of investigating on our behalf, and to think that that was sat on or not reported to anyone during that period of time, possibly led me, as the new administration coming in and receiving that commission report, to assume that something would have been done, and the instruction given to the incumbent director that any actions that need to be taken should be taken now rather than wait for final outcome, particularly those of a serious nature. But however, we are where we are with the report, and I think we just need to clarify some of those points. Moving on, anyway. What we have got is the action plan. I'm not going to be pompous enough to say that this is the perfect action plan, because, as you know, attached to this report is the plea to establish what we are calling the improvement board. This idea began to flourish through conversations I was having with my particular mentor and other people in and around the LGA. Again, the first meeting of the improvement board will take place on Friday, so we are submitting this action plan, and all members of the improvement board have got a copy now of the APA report. We're going to ask whether this is up to measure, whether this is a good enough action plan. So we're not just taking it on board as a cabinet that it is. We're going to get some external scrutiny on that. We will also be submitting to the improvement board, whenever it arrives, the history report, and obviously the associated action plan. Hopefully with that, we'll have external scrutiny on what recommendations they make. So, whilst approving this, I am ready and willing to take on board any recommendations that are made by the improvement board. Just one point I would like to say, and I have considered this point quite seriously when we've been given again, the LGA drafted up some improvement board drafts terms of reference. Obviously, they will be the first item of business on the improvement board, and we will discuss that. But one issue I would like to raise that I think would give us extra security, an extra chance to actually deal with this situation in a non-political way, perhaps the wrong way, but in a better way, would be non-tribal, would be that the chair of that improvement board is not a member of Wirral Council, but is indeed someone, an independent chair. I have approached initially Jill Taylor from the LGA, who's agreed to chair the beginning of the board. We may need to appoint an independent chair on a more permanent basis, but Jill has volunteered to take that on board. So making a fairly public announcement that I think we would all feel better, three-party leaders hopefully would feel better, I would, if we actually, the meeting isn't construed as being chaired by a political figure, but by someone who's genuinely interested in overseeing what we do locally on an external basis. So we've made that clear, and I hope that will be supported at the improvement board. And then we'll have obviously a debate in and around the terms of reference, including the issues in and around whether these are held in private or publicly, the meetings and the minutes recorded and so on. So there's a whole host of issues, but so what I don't want, right, anybody in the audience or the press, because we get enough stick in the press, is that these are draft terms of reference. You've heard my particular plea for an independent chair. There will be debate around the terms of reference. These are being approved, and the action plan is being approved, subject to comment from the improvement board as well, and obviously subject to any other comments that are made. In terms of any other issues in and around the APA report, I reiterate, and I say it quite clearly, it did, as part of that report, mean that we had a very critical analysis of our corporate governance, and I will take my partial responsibility for that failing corporate governance, certainly will. The accusation being made that I knew more about the APA, sorry, I knew more about the Mark Moore affair than was reported to members and other members, I think is a little bit difficult for me to take it, because my integrity is being personally challenged on a number of points. I am very, very serious about getting this right, but very, very serious about the individuals who've been harmed in this process, about putting that right. And I don't, you know, I don't take kindly to my individual character being part of the AKA report. We've heard from the Chief Exec, and anyone who's read the report, it isn't a critical report of elected members. It's critical about how elected members were in the loop and the advice that they were receiving. So I received the same advice as those people who sat on audit committee, who made certain decisions at certain points. Those who were on the charging committee, I think I was on that in 1997 as it turns out, but so were other members. There are lots of members involved in this issue. There's been 3 directors of social services. There's been a chief exec who's no longer here. There's been various party leaders. There's been every combination of administration we can have within this. And I'm hoping that this is used in a correct way to actually make this organisation better, safer, and more able to deliver for the people of Wirral. And I do hope that it is taken in that vein. If, however, I'm not seen as the person capable of doing that, then that's a decision for other people to make. But since, you know, come back as leader after the break, and since this issue's come around, we've put every single effort we put in, the hours and time that we put in as individuals, and other individuals from other parties who come onto the Corporate Governance Committee. We've put lots of time in. We're not making progress, then we'll be held to account. That's fair enough by external people. If it is to be used for the good, then it should be used for the good of people of Wirral and individuals like myself on that important in the whole scheme of things. Having said all that, we have made some progress. We have gone out to all members of staff, and we have told all members of staff in front of their managers where I thought the message would be best delivered, that we will be more open organisation to criticism and the whistleblowing in any form or shape or form that it comes. We should not be defensive about criticism or people alleging wrongdoing or things not going right. We should use every single one of those comments as a gift and a tool for improvement, rather than shutters go up. And that message went quite out clearly, consistently, from me as leader, Phil as deputy leader, and the chief executive. We all said the same thing, that the organisation needs to change and be more open and honest with itself and transparent in whatever form that is. That message was quite well received, and we are getting some extremely good comments and feedback from those sessions, but it needed to be said from the current leadership of the authority. The final thing I would like to say, that I have been most careful to do as leader and not be accused of subverting the investigation that was commissioned previously, is to stick every single way I possibly can to the recommendations and the outcomes, and indeed the individual who has put the report forward in terms of Anna Klonowski herself. So we've continued to use her during the process. Had I have deviated at all from any of the recommendations or advice given, I would have stood accused, I'm pretty sure, of trying to subvert this investigation or trying to move the agenda in a different way. So I've been absolutely almost Bible-like in sticking to the recommendations of the AK report. We don't get accused of trying to subvert it or use it in a political way. So we've stuck to all recommendations. And if that has felt like I've excluded other parties from the process, well, that were the recommendations from AKA and the recommendations from me. And I bend them where I can to bring people involved and on board as best I can. If people feel snubbed by that or let down by that, that was the sort of tightrope I felt I was walking as leader, where I had to stick ruthlessly to the recommendations, and we will stick ruthlessly to them. And if allowed to, we will get this situation better and right. But that's the action plan that we're approving to go for external scrutiny and hopefully scrutiny by any other member of the authority now it's in this cabinet report. So are we happy to accept all those recommendations and move forward? Okay. I didn't, by the way,